Hello guys, and welcome to Supreme Ruler 2030. Some of you might be wondering, what is Supreme Ruler 2030? Well, Supreme Ruler 2030 is a geopolitical grand strategy game. In this game, you can pick any nation that you see here on the map. You can form alliances with other nations or go to war with some other nations. You can control your country's infrastructure going around, building new facilities in a number of different industries, as well as participate in trade on a global market and control your budget in a finance screen, managing things like taxation, social spending. You can perform research to research new units and technologies. There are so many designs in this game based on real-world designs and some futuristic ones, and you can even create your units, launch satellites into the air, go to war. Supreme Ruler 2030 is one of the most in-depth grand strategy games ever made. So let's rewind, go back to the main menu, and cover what this game is and what you can do in it, one step at a time. First and foremost, this game features a helpful tutorial that has 4 different sections that you can play through. Start it up, the game will instantly be unpaused, and you'll be greeted by your first pop-up. You can play through the tutorial, learning the basics of the game as the developers intended that you learn about it, and in doing so, experience what is probably the best tutorial that has ever been made in the Supreme Ruler series. Once you finish your tutorial, you can check out the campaigns, where there are currently 4 different campaigns that you can take on. One is Germany, one is Russia, one is the United States, and one is China. Each of these are essentially story-driven scenarios that you can take on playing a single country with a set goal that you wish to accomplish. These scenarios are guided, so you don't have to question what you might do once you're in them. The game will just inform you what your goals can be. These are definitely simpler to hop into, as all you really customize is a difficulty setting. And once you've experimented with the campaigns, or you prefer something a little less guided, a little more hands-off, you can instead head over to the sandboxes, where you can customize a game in the different scenarios that are available. For example, the 2023 world scenario or the world in 2030. Set up every single gameplay setting exactly to your liking. Here in the game options, you can set your own victory conditions if you even want to have a condition, and you can even select the world volatility. So if you'd like a more peaceful world, you can pick one of the lower options, or if you'd like a very warmongery type of game, you pick the higher settings. As I mentioned, you can play any country in the entire world, which in the 2023 scenario starts at over 300. And you can find all of them categorized based on their continent or region, or you can just search in the country you're looking for here. For example, if I wanted to play specifically as, Chad. In addition, this game is not just single player, but you can also play online with your friends or randos, and you can enjoy multiplayer matches that work pretty much just the same as single player matches with up to, I believe, 16 different players. Once you pick your nation and boot into the game, you can find that you have many different ways to customize how the game looks to your liking. For example, changing between the different map modes so you can see different aspects of the game. You'll probably do this on the fly, but other things as well. For example, you can show whether or not you'd like to see line of sight. In addition to line of sight, there's also weather that's simulated as time passes. It moves around and animates, as you can see. You could just turn that visual off completely if you don't like it. But heck, even how the whole ocean looks can be changed, from this little animated effect on top of the water to the color on it. This is how the water looks with one of the other options. The effect above it is way more visible at this point, but then you can also just go turn that off completely if for whatever reason you don't like that. There's all kinds of customization, from scaling the models within the game, or turning on or off 3D terrain, changing the brightness of the terrain and objects if any of that bothers you. And now that you got your game set up how you want to play it, let's look at actually playing it. As I mentioned earlier, this is a very in-depth grand strategy game. You can do things from warmongering between countries. As we see, we look at Europe, there are a bunch of different units just moving around here. If we unpause, you can see them all just going. This is the normal speed and what it would look like. But Supreme Ruler isn't just a game about moving units around and fighting wars. It's also a game about managing your country. So one of the first things you'd probably tackle when you start up a game is your taxation and your spending. Every new government in office has to set its budget, right? And you can customize between, well, all of these different taxes that you see here. And the game is pretty good about letting you know where you're getting your money from, where you're spending it, your overall income, expenses, how that adds up for a surplus or deficit, what you're making or losing on trades, your treasury, and there's even a way to take out bonds and debt and pay it back and manage that aspect of real-life countries. If you come down to social spending, it works quite the same. There's a bunch of different spendings for you to spend on, from healthcare to infrastructure to family subsidy and law enforcement. All of them affect different things within the game, just like taxation all affects different parts of your economy and people within your economy. And those people have a happiness rating, and your economy has a growth or inflation that you have to manage. And while I'm explaining this, I just want you to know that if any part of this sounds unattractive to you, maybe you don't want to deal with running the economy and the finances, maybe you don't want to deal with the war side of this, maybe you don't want to manage your research, maybe managing industry and resources just isn't your style. You don't have to, because technically speaking, every single department of your government has a cabinet. A cabinet minister is assigned, where you can assign priorities, of which you'll see a couple up here, or you could go into custom priorities and set specifically what do you want your AI to automate for you. So all of this can be micromanaged, from taxation and stuff, as I just explained, to resources, to research, to military. All of it can be automated if you don't want to do it. However, you could of course feel free to micromanage every single aspect of this game. The game has multiple different speeds with which you can run it at, and it is real-time pausable, so you can take the game at your own pace, micromanaging or not, as much of the game as you feel comfortable doing. As I mentioned, in addition to the finances, there are also resources that you'll have to manage. There's 11 different resources that all have their own industries and buildings that you can build anywhere on the map pretty much that you own. If we turn on the oil filter, you'll be able to see that there are also oil spots out in the ocean, so you could technically even build resources out in the ocean where you don't own. Supreme Ruler as a series has generally had one of the biggest and most expansive tech trees I have ever seen in a video game, and this is no different. You can go ahead and research all kinds of technologies, as well as see all the different known technologies that you already have. Between those and the individual designs for different units, for example, LAVs, things like Bradleys, as well as the good old Abrams, there's a lot of different unique designs for you to interact with in this game. And you can even pull up a spec sheet of every single unit in the game and examine their individual stats given to you with helpful little symbols, numbers, and tooltips in case you don't know what you're looking at. Over on the war side of things, you can produce your own units or buy them from other countries for land, air, sea, and also missiles that can interact with all three of those previous fields. This whole process can be automated per department with different parameters to meet the exact specifications you want for your military, or you can just pull up your already researched designs or more when you get them, and you can also buy more designs from other countries and produce specific units you want, all the way to the point of picking exactly what base and where on the map that you want those units to be produced in. To help you with controlling your units, if you're here more for the nation running than the actual warfare itself, you have automation settings that you can give to your minister with different amounts of privileges that you grant. Each one has a tooltip when you select it, telling you what the AI will be capable of with that setting selected. There's also an ROE that you can apply to all of your units or just specific groups. And you can determine things like, do you want them to have a lot of initiative? Do you want them to run away when they start taking losses? How fast should they move? What kind of route should they take to get to their objective? How should they interact with missiles? The game even has a handy battle group organization system, where when you select some units like I've done here, you can go ahead and put them in battle group controls and create a battle group out of them. Once you've created a battle group, you can go into the battle group and select your battle group, giving it orders as a cohesive unit, as well as moving it in formation. And if you plan to manage large fronts, there's even a battle group manager where you can organize all your battle groups as well as form some without specifically picking out every individual unit you want in them, using filters and other parameters to organize your offensives, defensives, and just your military in general. And of course, it wouldn't be a modern geopolitical strategy game if there weren't nukes. And boy, are there nukes, and there's a big red button you can press if you would like to strategically launch them, but these can also be controlled like other missiles and launched directly from individual units at specific targets of your choosing. Depending on how you like to interact with your UI, all the UI in the game can pretty much be expanded or minimized entirely. Or if you're just someone that needs everything in one spot, there's even a way to simply pull up a pop-up where you can go through pretty much every single thing that I just showed you on a handy center screen organization menu. You can even select a different country and pull up your diplomacy information and ways to interact with them there. You can declare war, open up diplomatic offers so that you can trade technology, units, resources, or come to mutual agreements. And of course, all this other stuff can be done simply out on the map by just going to a nation, right-clicking to open up a context menu, and then here you have more options such as diplomatic offers, or even just telling your units, hey, never run through this country. Let's say you don't want your troops helping out Canada. If Canada gets invaded, just tell them don't go through there. In addition to everything I just showed you, there's also espionage, where you can assign spies to the map. For example, on cyber attacks, you can send them to assassinate enemy leaders. You can combat enemy espionage with counterintelligence, as well as a number of other things. You can even automate this process per country, including the counterintelligence process. In addition, the game features customization settings such as changing the flag of your region, and there's many pages of default flags to look at, but you can also add in, through modding, your own custom flags into the game to really customize this exactly how you want. You can even go in and just rename your region if you want to maybe take a little bit more of a fictional approach and really just customize your own playable nation into existence without a lot of heavy modding or anything. And if you're ever feeling overwhelmed and you need to get an idea of what's going on in the game, or you just really like looking at numbers and data, this game has that too. In addition to all the different overlays and map modes, at the bottom right here you'll see a selection of different options on the UI to show you information on the map and even give you some ways to interact with it, as well as you can pull up the regional atlas at the top right, which can give you tons of information such as on population, GDP per capita, total treasury, as well as military statistics such as production capacity, the amount of active troops, their losses or kills in war, and then there's even more stats, like you can see what governments people are, how much land do they have. There's even ways to see how much land a nation has taken over. And if you're a competitive person, there's even a whole bunch of scores on which the game will rank you and the other countries in the game, in case you want to compare how you're doing and you need or want a more solidified number than coming to your own conclusions. And that's not all. There's even more that you just simply cannot see right now. For example, if you're looking more at the war side of things, there's even theaters that you can pull up around the world that you can interact with to give specific macro management orders on how you want your units or even static garrisons to interact with the world. And not just theaters, there's another smaller level, such as battle zones, which can be actively traded between yourself and other countries. In addition to that, there's colonies. For example, if we select America, the game treats all of its territories as colonies. So, American Puerto Rico, as well as some Pacific islands. These colonies can be interacted with and even controlled just like it was your own territory, but will have a certain amount of automation and autonomy from you. They can also be interacted with, for example, with this menu that I showed you earlier. They can be liberated to independent countries annexed directly into your nation, or managed from a more hands-off colonial approach. You can trade these colonies between yourself and other countries in one quick trade or go ahead and develop your colonies into something maybe that you're preparing to take over for yourself, or into something that you wish to have work alongside you. Depending on your government type, there's even elections that happen, for example, for democracies, where if you don't win, you're gonna have to maybe take your country down a dictatorial route in order to stay in power. So make sure to check where your election is, check how much your population approves of you, and then if they don't like you enough to win the next election, maybe drop some taxes, maybe raise some spending. This game has a little bit of everything, and a whole lot of some of the most important things in order to keep grand strategy players engaged. I hope you guys have enjoyed this informational What is Supreme Ruler 2030 video. This is going to be the first in my introduction tutorial series for Supreme Ruler 2030, just as I've made here on the Konglomerat YouTube channel for Supreme Ruler Ultimate in the past. If you want to see more of this kind of thing, feel free to let me know in the comments below. What do you need help with? What would you like to see me show off, or what kind of questions do you have? Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more. I hope I've answered all your most basic questions in this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you somewhere else.